Good evening, Bruins and friends. My name is Monica Lee, and as Director of Regional Communities at the UCLA Alumni Association, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Central Valley Bruins cooking class as part of the UCLA Alumni Welcome to the City series. You are in for a treat with tonight's orange thyme chicken prepared with herbed rice and summer squash. Thank you again for joining us, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce our instructor for this evening, Central Valley Network volunteer, Nancy Madrigal. Thanks, Nancy.
So let's get started. I'm going to show basically the equipment that I have here with me to make sure that you guys know just what I'm going to be using, and so that you can all grab some items yourself as well. Okay, so I have a pot with a cover for the rice, and then I have a large pan right here. That one doesn't need a cover. I have a spatula, some tongs to move around the chicken, and a couple of forks. This will help us with the chicken as well, and also to check the veggies later on. So hopefully you all have that ready to go. If not, go ahead and grab it. I'm gonna put it in place over here in front of this camera so that you can all see it. All right, so we're gonna start with getting our first ingredients. So if you have the recipe in front of you, we're gonna start with the rice and the summer squash, okay? So here I have a cutting board with the summer squash. If you don't have that cut up already, then I'll do it here with you. And so I have the summer squash on a cutting board. I have the water that I'll be using for the rice itself as well. And then we have 1 teaspoon of thyme, chili powder, another teaspoon, a tablespoon of butter, a teaspoon of chicken bouillon as well. But I'll read that out again as we're putting it into the pot. So, so first I'll start by taking care of this squash. So I'm gonna cut off the ends on both of the yellow squash, and just let me know if I'm going too fast for everybody. If you guys need some time to gather things, just let me know. Okay, so I cut off the ends. Now I'm gonna cut it down and have this summer squash, or it's also called a yellow squash as well. So here we go. We got the 2 halves there. Okay. Let me bring this pot over. So, as you can see, all of the summer squash may not fit into the pot. So one thing you can do, I think they look really pretty if you can keep it as big as possible. So I'm gonna keep 2 of these 4 pieces as big as possible and cut off the smaller end. So I cut it like this so that 2 of these big chunks will fit in the pot, okay? Now, since there's probably only room for 2 of those big pieces, I'm going to take the rest of this second yellow squash and just cut it down into some half moons and have that ready to go in the pot, okay? So let's cut these half moons here. All right, and so these we'll put over the rice when we get to that part, and they will just cook and like steam over the rice is basically the idea. So there we are. Let's cut these one more time. Okay. So if I can show you 2 big pieces and a lot of half moons there. Okay. All right, so I will start off by getting 1 teaspoon of thyme. Now we're gonna start throwing things into the pot, okay? 1 teaspoon of thyme. Toss that in. 1 teaspoon of chili powder. We're gonna toss that into the pot. And then 1 teaspoon of chicken bouillon. I'm gonna toss that in as well. And then we have the butter. Dump that in as well. The rice. Okay, and then we're gonna dump in 1.5 cups. That was 1 cup of rinsed rice, and we're gonna put 1.5 cups of water in there. It's good that all of that is mixing there. You can just give your pot like a little wiggle there so that those spices just blend in together. Now let's take it on to, oh, actually not yet. If you still have your chili powder and your thyme, one thing that I like to do is just sprinkle a little bit of the chili powder and thyme. Here, I'll grab some over here. And let me take this cutting board over here under this. You guys see that? Okay.
Nancy, with the squash, I would use about 3/4 of that, or half of that. That's a lot.
Okay. So Christopher is suggesting less of the squash to use.
With the squash, you can kind of go on your own about how much you want to do that. The issue with putting in a whole bunch of squash with the amount of rice that we have is that it will push the rice down as it cooks, and it could impact how we cook the rice. So, you know, summer squashes are not all created equal. Some are big, some are small. With that amount, I would probably use 1/2 to 3/4 of it.
Yeah, so if you got some really big pieces, then you don't have to use it all. It's up to you. So you might want to make that call. So I have some thyme and chili powder here, and I'm just going to sprinkle this over the summer squash here, and especially the chili powder here. That will help it look really pretty, since this is going to be sitting on top of the rice, and so it kind of stays on there even as we bring the rice to a boil. So here I have my pot that I'm going to use, and I'm going to put it on medium high, because we want to get, or a little bit higher to get a boil going. Once we get a boil going, then we're going to put it on medium to cook, and then we'll cover it. So I'm going to put these pieces of summer squash in there. You can put less you'd like, so to not squish your rice. And then we will place these big pieces on the top like so. Okay. Right. Need a slight helps. There we go. So we're going to want to keep an eye on that. I'm going to put a timer on here for about 15 minutes. But again, once it starts boiling, then we're going to turn down the heat. Right?
I have an alternative too to message. Or if you're not wanting to put the summer squash in with the rice for whatever reason, or if, for instance, you're planning on doing a huge portion of rice, you're cooking for multiple people, the alternative is to take the summer squash and put them face up into a glass pan in the oven at 350 degrees. You drizzle a little bit of olive oil on the top, on the open side, and then you sprinkle thyme and chili powder on top.
Yeah, we definitely made this recipe efficient. We like to roast it. We like the flavor a little bit more of roasting the yellow squash all together. But to make this just more efficient and quick for us here and not needing too many tools and things going on, we'll just put it on top of the rice and steam it, make it easy, because that's less dishes, right? So, all right, what we're going to do next is we're going to prep the chicken. And so we want to have the chicken ready to go. We have some olive oil and salt and pepper. And so you're just going to put the salt and pepper to season it. But let's get the pan on medium high so that we can get it ready for this. Okay, so let's start it high. So it's nice and warm as we're seasoning the chicken here. So I'm gonna grab my fork that I had set aside, and we'll use that to move around. So I would just take some of the salt, sprinkle it around, move the pieces around, and just sprinkle that over all the pieces of chicken. Make sure we get some all over. So this is, you know, not too much, not too little, but you want to get that flavor all around on all of the pieces. So just use your fork to move these around, and also your pepper. So put some salt and pepper, whatever way you think is more efficient to get that done with your setup at home. I know that when it comes to the pepper, I like to crush the pepper. I like the stronger taste. So I'll get the crushed pepper and put that on there. Let me grab that. Get my grinder. Here. Move it around and get the rest of the pieces. Okay, so how are things going so far? Do we have any questions? Am I going too fast? Let me know.
Nancy, I noticed you didn't season the smaller pieces of squash. Was there a reason?
Those, since they're smaller, they'll be closer to the rice, so they'll be okay. Really, just the seasoning is more just so that it looks pretty. It's all in there. The big thing about this recipe is the glaze that we put on it. That's where all the flavor. So even when you plate it, you're going to get a whole lot of flavor out of the glaze, and the rice, you know, has some seasoning in it, and so the squash, you know, just gives you a little bit more balance. Otherwise, it's a whole lot of flavor. But if you like that, you can feel free to just season it even more.
Great, thank you.
All right, I think I got almost all of my pieces here. Okay, so now I'm gonna go check the pan and see if that's warming up, and I'm gonna put some oil in there so that heats up as well. Yep, we got that going. I'm checking my rice. I don't see that we have a boil going yet, so we won't turn it down quite yet, but if you have a boil going on your rice, go ahead and turn it down to medium and cover that. And we'll check on that later. So I'm gonna check the heat here. Once I see that my oil has like some ripple, that means that it's warm and it's ready for the chicken. When we put the chicken in, we want to hear a sizzle, and that means that it's hot enough to cook. So we want it to get heated up and have the pan ready to go for our chicken. So we'll just wait here a little bit. It's almost ready.
You want to tell them an alternative to the chicken?
Oh yeah, an alternative to the chicken. If you're a vegetarian or you have vegetarian guests, you can use tofu, breaded tofu, get some flour, season it, or cornstarch some people use as well. And you get your pieces of tofu, you bread it, and you get it going on the pan just like we're gonna do with the chicken here. And it really just absorbs the flavor to just everything just goes well, you know, so well together with the tofu too. So, so there are options with this as well. Okay, pretty sure my oil is ready. So I'm gonna take my seasoned chicken and start putting it in the pan. I'm gonna grab one piece and kind of test it for that sizzle. Yep, I hear it. So I'll place all of these pieces of chicken there. And what we're gonna wanna do with these is have them on the heat for about 5 minutes until they're brown. Now keep in mind, everybody's pans, everybody's stoves are a little bit different. So you want a healthy, like brown, you know, getting crusty type of thing on the side. So if you see that happening, you're gonna wanna turn them around earlier than we are. But I'm gonna set a timer for about 5 minutes, but it'll be important to be checking on that. Okay, 5 minutes for that. Okay, I just realized why my water isn't boiling there with the rice. And so if yours is boiling, turn it down to medium and put the cover on it. And let's give it some more time there. So I had accidentally put it on low, but that should be going soon. We'll be fine. Okay.
Nancy, for those who are making the rice with the rice cooker, are there any special tips that they should keep in mind that's different from how you've been preparing it with the pot?
Oh yeah, so in the rice cooker, that's how I usually make it. I wanted to make it today in the pot, but a rice cooker is just really easy. You pretty much do the same thing. You just, you know, put everything in the pot, you click start and cook and get it going, and it'll take care of itself. It'll steam the veggies there on the top, and it'll be done. What we have to watch out with a pot is to make sure that the rice doesn't stick at the bottom. And as soon as we see that the pot of rice doesn't have any water in it, you can usually just like look through the rice and you know, see if there's some moisture there. If it's almost done, then we want to just remove it from the heat right away so that it doesn't burn on the bottom. And we'll have to stop that cooking at a certain point before our chicken and glaze is done. So keep an eye out for that and remove it from the heat if your rice is done. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my fork again and check the chicken. And so we see that it's starting to brown a bit, but it's not quite there. Okay. All right, so I'll tell you a little bit about how I started with the UCLA group here in the Central Valley. I moved back some years ago, and a friend in the Bay Area was active in her group, which is really big. And so she suggested that I look out for the group here in Fresno. And, you know, in time I did, and I got involved, and we had some really fun events. It's been probably about 3 years or so since I started getting involved, and we've done all sorts of different things. There's been several mixers that have been fun and just that bring different people out. We've had a volunteer event, and we've also, what else have we done? I think of some other things. So let's check our chicken here, see if it's brown. And so go ahead.
When you get a color like this is a little low right now, but that's good actually. We caught it before it turned too brown. That's a good color right there. It starts to turn like a brownish orange. And when you get to that color, in order to prevent it from burning, but to still cook it and you get the flavor and the crust that you want, you drop the heat down to medium and leave them on the side that they're currently on for a little bit longer. The numbers that we're giving you right now, see, that's a great color right there. It's turning to a brownish orange. But the numbers we're giving you for cooking right now, with just a general like guidelines, it all depends upon how thick your frying pan is, how hot your stove is, how thick the chicken is, the kind of chicken. If you get chicken thighs, it's got more fat in it, it won't burn as fast. So it depends upon a lot of things. So these need to be turned. These are right about the point that they need to be turned. We've now, on our grill, we've turned the heat down to medium. Since these I can tell by looking at these chicken that they're more than halfway cooked through, so we're going to leave it on medium to prevent from overcooking them.
We just did this the other day and medium was too low, but now, you know, we had it higher and we're bringing it down. So it just depends, but you want to get that brown and then that lets you know to turn it around.
I'm going to set another timer for about 4 minutes.
So it may be a good time to check on the rice and see whether or not you still have some water in there. If you still have some water, keep it going for some more time. Mine's a little delayed, so make sure that you check yours though, okay? Let's go ahead and cover it.
And I'll keep an eye on the chicken.
All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started in making the sauce, the glaze that we're going to use for the chicken. We won't need it right away, but we will be needing it soon. I'm going to grab my clear bowl. I forgot to grab a bowl earlier, but you're going to need a bowl. We're going to dump some ingredients in here for the glaze so that it's ready to go as soon as the chicken is done on the other side. Okay, so in your bowl, we're going to put some ingredients. I have apple cider vinegar, orange juice, and I use oranges. I got some zest out of them, so that's a bonus. If you have that, it adds a nice splash of flavor in there. So I left all the pulp in there, but if you just have a bottle of orange juice, then that's fine too. So 3/4 of a cup of apple cider vinegar, and then 3/4 of a cup of orange juice as well. We have 3 tablespoons of soy sauce, 4 heaping tablespoons of brown sugar. So I'm gonna start dumping the dry ingredients on there. So the 4 tablespoons of brown sugar, I'm gonna put the dry ingredients in the bowl so that they don't splash later. A tablespoon of chili powder, a tablespoon of thyme, and let's see, 3 tablespoons of soy sauce. Chris is telling me to speed up because our chicken is almost done. So let's see here. I'm going to put the zest in there as well. We're going to save the garlic and the butter for later, okay? So set those aside. Don't dump those into the bowl. Red pepper, we're going to put a pinch in there. If you like a little more kick, go ahead and put a little bit more. And then the apple cider vinegar and the orange juice. Those go in, and we give that a mix. Grab a spoon. And just give that a stir. Okay, I have a timer going off, so your rice may be done. Check your rice again. Check your chicken. Check the other side.
We've now got the same color on both sides. And so at this point, now that you've got this brownish orange color on there, it's time to put the sauce in.
So the way that this is going to go is first, we're going to take our minced garlic and we're going to put that in the pan. Then we'll put the bowl and the butter at the very end. Okay, so are we ready for the garlic?
Yeah.
Okay, put that minced garlic in there, move it around. You want to smell that nice garlicky aroma, but we don't want it to burn. I tend to overcook things, so confession. And so just look out for that. If your heat is too high, just put it down. I'm gonna stir my bowl here with the glaze ingredients. And then we're gonna just dump this all into the pan.
Nancy, I had a question come in. Someone was asking, shouldn't chicken be measured to be 165 degrees throughout to be safe? Is browning a good enough measure of this?
Well, if your pieces of chicken, like if you used a chicken breast, then checking it, I definitely would. From our experience in making this recipe, we usually use smaller pieces like the chicken tenderloins or chicken thighs even, and those are usually smaller. So, so it depends, you know, how big your pieces of meat are. So, so just, yes, make sure that your chicken is well cooked. You definitely do not want to get sick. Chicken is not a cut of meat that you can't have undercooked.
May I respond to that?
Yeah.
Another thing about this is that these cuts are so thin, and we cook chicken so often that we know that they're going to cook through. The way this recipe is designed is actually the chicken could be eaten right now, but it's going to get an extra 5 minutes with the sauce in there to absorb the flavors. So you're actually you're cooking it more than you actually need to. But that being said, if somebody's uncomfortable with chicken, I would not measure the temperature with cuts that are this thin. I would only measure temperatures with like a whole chicken or a very large chicken breast line, and I'm talking 2 or 3 inches thick. With things like this, if you're concerned about whether or not it's safe to eat it, I would cut it open and see if the meat is still pink. Just pick a piece, pick the thickest piece, cut it in the thickest area, and see if it's still pink. If it's still pink, more time. If not, you're good to go.
So we see that that the sauce in here, the liquid is bubbling. We want to see it bubbling. And when we get a consistency that is syrupy, right now it looks pretty liquidy. Then, you know, but when it's thicker, then that means that the sauce is done. We dump in the butter at that time and give it a mix. And then we're pretty much done. So this has gone a little bit faster than it did in the run through. But just remember that everybody's stove, pan, you know, equipment, it just may cook at a different speed or temperature. And so you want to just keep an eye out for those things, you know, that the chicken is cooked thoroughly, that we have the glaze that's forming and not overcooking it. Last time I made it, I overcooked it, unfortunately, but it was still delicious. So you want to look for a thicker consistency than it is at the beginning. Something that would be nice to glaze over the chicken, if you can imagine that. And then that will let us know that it's ready. Okay. So this part, it just depends, you know, there's times where it's taken 5 to 7 minutes. There's other times where, you know, 3 minutes is too quick. It depends on you know, how things are going. If you have more bubbling going on right now, then it may just cook quicker for you. Okay, so keep an eye on that. And
just part of the mechanism of what turns it into a glaze is the brown sugar. And so if you're looking to cut calories, there are ways to do that. One of the ways to do that is to reduce the brown sugar or eliminate it. And instead of using brown sugar, and even instead of using butter, if you don't want to use that, is you can put cornstarch into some water and slowly mix it in after this is cooked for a little while, and that will thicken the sauce in a similar way.
Do we have any questions at this point?
For those who are cooking the rice in the pot, not the rice cooker, how do they know when they should remove the rice from the heat, the pot from the heat?
Once you can put like a spoon in there and check it through the rice. And if you do not see that there is liquid there on the bottom, then you know that it is done. Okay. Now, if you know, today we got some bigger pieces of the summer squash. So you can check that too, and just pierce the summer squash. So one of them's okay, the other one actually could take more time. So like Chris was suggesting at the beginning, you may want to, take out some of the summer squash if it's really big pieces that were available at the grocery store on that day or the market. And so our rice looks like it's done. And then it's to your liking too. You know, if you like the firmer vegetables, then you may be okay. It just depends on your preference.
And just so everyone knows, what I'm doing over here is I was looking at this. We still had it on a medium heat, I didn't feel like it was boiling down fast enough, so I've turned the heat up to medium high. You can do that, or you can leave it on medium. Medium gives you more control, and it'll prevent mistakes, because like we said, if you take it too far, it'll get way too thick and it'll be more like a jelly, and you don't want that. The other thing to keep in mind when you're cooking or making glazes, that it's very similar to like pasta, and that is that even when you take it off the heat, even when you lower heat, it's still cooking. So you actually have to kind of stop it before it's at the point that you want it at.
A good thing to know too is that the brown sugar is what, and the sugars in the orange juice is what helps make it syrupy and like a thicker consistency. So, you know, we squeezed 2 oranges. With the pulp, it was just a little bit more than 3/4 of a cup. Just looking at it, if it's taking, you know, a while, we don't see that happening, we can toss in some more brown sugar, and that will help just glaze it up. Okay, but cooking it down like this, having, you know, the steam just rise there will help cook it down.
Nancy, could you add in cornstarch at this time too, if you kind of want to quicken the thickening?
Mm-hmm.
Cornstarch should be added in when you're ready to take it off. So because what will happen with cornstarch is if it's royally boiling like that, or if you mix it in too fast, you can risk not putting it in right. I think that it could also clump too. So I would wait to put the cornstarch in until you think it's done cooking. This was done cooking about 1 minute after we put this stuff in. You could start eating it. What we're doing right now is we're trying to get the glaze down to where it should be. And so what I'm going to do is, it's starting to kind of clump up a little bit. I don't know if you can see it on here. It's starting to thicken up a little bit, but we're going to put in a little bit more brown rice or brown sugar.
Nancy, with regards to the rice, if someone uses, for example, a brown rice, would it be the same way of cooking it?
Could you say that one more time, please?
If someone were to use brown rice instead of white rice, just because it's usually you might have to cook it a little longer. Is that the case for this dish?
I guess you may need a little bit more water for the brown rice, and you may need to cook it a little bit more. So brown rice tends to be just like more chewy and like thicker, and so it usually requires some more water, and it takes longer. Okay, so if you've been cooking brown rice, you know, it may not have cooked as quickly as the other rice. So it may be taking a little bit longer, but I think with this recipe, it should, you know, come out at about the same time. So
you may want to just start your brown rice a little bit earlier. Brown rice can always be finished before everything else because it's sitting in a pot. So you can always just kind of set it aside. I want to kind of interject. One of the things, this is getting to the point now where we're going to put the butter in. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it off the heat and pull it over. And as you can see, or I don't know if you can quite see it, but one of the ways you can tell that the glaze is done is that the bubbles will start to pop really fast when it first starts to boil. But when the glaze is starting to thicken up, not only will you start to see the glaze look smoother and thicker, but you'll also start to see that the bubbles take a longer time to pop. So at the beginning, they're popping like this. And then as the glaze starts to form, they start to pop slower. And that's because the sugar's caramelized.
So what I'm doing right now is moving around the butter so that it gets around the glaze, and just, you know, having that mix in there.
Can you use a butter substitute for this recipe?
You could completely remove the butter, and you could use the butter is to give it like a creaminess. So you could completely remove the butter. You can
maybe more sugar.
More sugar, or you could try something like maybe coconut oil. I haven't tried coconut oil, but that's another thing you could try. If you're wanting it for the thickness, which is why I primarily used it, was for thickness. It's not really for flavor. You could do the cornstarch idea that I was talking about earlier. So there's several different ways: more brown sugar, cornstarch with water, or maybe coconut oil. But I haven't tried coconut oil, or coconut milk even could be used. Either one of those.
Yeah. So we are ready to plate our dinner here. So I'm going to start off with grabbing a piece of the summer squash and putting that on the plate here on the side. And do you want to grab a plate too? That way I can get some of this other big piece out of the way. Actually, I can put it here on the side. That'll be quick. Okay. I'll just grab this spoon right here. We're gonna make a bed of rice. When you're picking up the rice, you can also just, take your spoon or your fork and just fluff it up some. We put some veggies on the top, so, it may help to just fluff up the rice there. And so we're gonna spoon that, make a bed of rice there. You can get some of the big chunks of the summer squash as well. You can see that. All right, so we have our bed of rice there. And next I'll grab my tongs and get some pieces of chicken to put over the rice. So I'll put this way. Grab one more piece. And so we have our chicken there. And then we're gonna get some of this glaze here. Give it a little bit more of a mix in case the butter isn't incorporated everywhere. And then we're gonna drizzle that over the chicken like so. And this is what's gonna give it pops of flavor. So you may not wanna put too much, but if you really like it, then you might wanna add more. Okay, so there we have our glaze and our dish. Orange thyme chicken. Right. Are you guys ready to eat? Did the timing work out? I'm so curious. I wish I could see everybody.
Thank you again, Nancy, for that wonderful instruction. The dish looks amazing. For all of our viewers today, we encourage you to send in photos of your dishes because we want to see what your dishes look like. And we'll post it on our Central Valley Network social media page. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us following this event. In addition to that, Nancy, Summer is wondering if you can come over and make that at her place.
Summer is welcome to come and have some of ours.
Thank you again, Nancy and Christopher, for tonight's instruction. And thank you again to our viewers for joining us. Take care, everyone, and have a good night. Enjoy. Bon appetit.